Okay, my friends, Roger once again. Get ready. I am about to rock your world, and I mean in a major way. I have been studying all the ancient myths and relating them to any material evidence, and I can say it supports or contradicts them, one or the other. Or I can't find anything. However, I have found a lot. Now, what we're going to start with now is the Great Red Spot on Jupiter. All right, everybody probably knows there's this great red spot. They call it a storm. Been there basically forever. Well, guess what? They just found another planet in another solar system, which means a whole other area that has their own sun, and it actually has two suns. And this planet is in that solar system, and it also has a red spot. And here it is right here. Now, why? Why would that have a red spot and Jupiter has a red spot? Well, I'm going to tell you what. The myth explains this. And Velikovsky, my hero, also explained it by all the cultures on Earth, their histories. He researched that, and he found a common thread amongst all of them, that there was a terrible, terrible catastrophe on Earth, which was the Great Flood. And Yale now agrees with this. There was one giant flood on Earth, and it predated life on Earth, is what they say. It predated life on Earth, but there was life at this time. It wiped it out. That's what Yale says. I'm going to show you the paper that they wrote and the explanations they give, and my explanation against their explanation. Now, don't forget, we got red spots on two planets. Why? Where did life come from? Where did the planets come from? Well, if you read the myth, that's where they came from right there. Let's take a look into this. Okay, my friends, I am once again shocked, as I am daily. What am I shocked about? Well, there's a great red spot on Jupiter, and that is the size of Earth. It fits in that red spot. And this is like Earth being born from that red spot. This is a close-up of that red spot. Now, I claim that everything in the universe is biological so far that I can find. Things, stars and everything like that, that's just things that are so big that they heat up so much spinning through space, they give off so much heat, they're literally burning, like our sun is. It's just so big, that's all. And the same thing, the bigger they get, the more and more they scrub. That means it's hotter and hotter and hotter. That's all it is. And the sun is just scrubbing through space like crazy, giving off enormous amounts of energy. All right, we'll get into that later. But what I have to do is show you that this is a biological female body part. And it did actually give birth to the fiery comet Venus. Now, I'm going to show you the anatomical body parts, so get ready. It's, it's just what it is. If I can't show you and you don't want to see it, we'll just do something else, because it's going to come up and I'm going to show you every little detail that I say represents this as a female body part. Let's take a look at it close, or not. Okay, I just cut out a little thing so that it could replicate basically what we're seeing between the two. Now, I say they are both vaginas. Now, you can obviously see the shape. What else can we see here? There's actually the hairline right here, which is the same as the hairline around the outside edge. Now, that little spot right there, I'm going to zoom in closer in a second. That little spot represents this same spot right here, and what that is a tag that locks this body part in so it doesn't move around back and forth. This whole vagina is locked in there. And the same thing here. You see that? That's that body part being locked in right here. All right? That's how they work. This literally is the hairline. It's exactly the same. No difference whatsoever. And the rest is just pretty obvious what it is. You know, if you take it that way, if you don't, well, that's up to you. But this is that's that tag, and the rest is basically the same. And this, in the ancient text, it said, the feared god Jupiter gave birth, literal birth, to the fiery comet Venus. And Venus was ejected from Jupiter on demand, apparently, to wipe off the life on Earth, because it was so corrupted, and the giants and monsters. I mean, and I've pretty much verified most of this stuff appears to be very, very accurate. And Velikovsky did the work in Minds in Collision. I mean, I wrote Minds in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision. But I'm going to tell you something. Minds in Collision is extremely accurate. Now, here's what happened. Venus was ejected from the Great Red Spot. It came, popped right out of there, headed towards Earth. It combusted with our atmosphere and really boiled the waters and everything. That's what created the mud fossils. After it did that and created the Great Flood, it continued on and literally hit Mars. And here's where it hit Mars. It came in apparently this way and scraped right across Mars. This is wider than the United States and extremely deep. And this was what happened. This was in Mars now. So what would have happened to Venus? Well, this is what happened to Venus. Electrical discharges like crazy. You see that? That's just like welding scars. Now, apparently, I think it would have probably hit here or maybe hit here and spread out there. I don't know. But Venus spins backwards. So you would have, that would like magnify the magnetic interaction, because if we're spinning the same way, well, they'd sort of do what they normally do. Maybe they sort of spin against each other a little bit and flip out. But if it's spinning one backwards against the other one, that's a whole different story. You should get enormous amounts of this magnetic flux. And it appears that it pushed the magnetic part this way and the material part the other way, a big just gouge. And that's how these planets are. There's a positive and a negative to them. And that's what it looks like to me. This was where the negative end of things was taking place, where the discharges were, I don't know, I'm just guessing at this point. I mean, and I don't like to guess a lot, but I see this perfectly formed scrape, and then I see this nothing but electrical discharge. I wonder, is this a polar event? In other words, one side had a positive, one side have a negative. Because I know the positive is just, it would just scrape just like that, basically. And the negative just gets crazy and balloons up and gets extremely, electric. And if you talk to a guy that was a welder and you asked him this, he'd say, "Oh, that's an electric discharge." You could do this with a welder, and you'd make all kinds of little things just like that. So it's I'm just a guessing at this point. But I do believe we're set up for another birth. It looks like to me. This just happened in the last few years. And this is a Great Red Spot, sloughing off slabs of red blood. Well, they don't say blood, but they said slabs of red, like mats, coming off of here for 3 days or so. Well, from 5:25 to 6:1, this is event. And it really looks like it's forming a nice crowned cervix. And could it be giving birth again? Who's to say no? I don't know. Okay, my friends, this is a stunner, shocker, all of those things multiplied times a bazillion. This is of the Greek mythology. All right, this is all simplified family tree of the gods. Now, let me just read you this one paragraph, and then I'm going to show you the details, why I say this has some validity to it and should be looked into. Now, from the first origin of Earth and the gods, Hesiod explains how the present world government came to be established. Hesiod is the first one that ever wrote about history, and that was only 800 and something BC. And he was told to write by the daughters of Zeus, who was the god in control, and they were the muses. And anyway, they met Hesiod on Mount Helicon, and they said, you write this story, and that's what he wrote. So he explains how the present world government came to be established. The kernel of the story is the take of the Titans and the younger gods, how Zeus overthrew Kronos and came to rule the world from Olympus. This story was borrowed, all right, not invented by the Greeks. The tale of the younger generation overthrowing the older gods, including details like castration with a sickle and swallowing a stone instead of the babies, is found in myths from Western Asia and Mesopotamia before 1000 BC. Now don't forget, Hesiod wrote around 800 and something BC. These were known in the texts of these other countries, nations, Asia and Mesopotamia, prior to that a couple of hundred years. But only a couple of hundred years, that's 1000 BC. That's only 3,200 years ago. All right, now, what is new and characteristic of Greek myths in the earliest sources is the systematic complexity with which all these crazy disparate, it means all these different materials of various types are united to give an understanding of a comprehensible world order. And that's the key. And I'm telling you something, I studied pretty deep into this stuff, and boy, I'm telling you, I had a hard time. But I think what they had written was at least worthy of researching, and I researched it. And I think you should research it too. All right, I just want to explain one thing. I cannot tell you where God came from. I don't think anybody can, and I don't even know if God could tell you where he came from, or he or she or whoever God is. Now, but we obviously have some kind of creation here. I mean, it's just you can't. If you deny that, well, just go home and go to sleep. But if you say all this stuff is here, it's real, where'd it come from? Well, that's the question. Creation and the progress. In the opening chapters of Genesis, there are two different accounts of how God created the world. According to the first of them, which is thought to date from about the 5th century BC, in the beginning the universe was a watery chaos, just nothing but a without form and void. All right, so it was just swirling nothingness, shrouded in darkness. God made light and everything else that exists. Light makes everything. Light is the particles that make up protons. This is just another thing they don't understand. Light itself is matter, and as it accumulates, it makes molecules and atoms, and everything there is made from light. Now, so he made man and woman, and that's just basically how they just end it. All this had taken 6 days, and on the 7th day God rested from his labors. The story of the 7 days of creation was accepted by generations of Christians as literally true, and in the 17th century, Anglo-Irish scholar James Ussher, Archbishop of Armagh, calculated the date of creation as 4004 BC. In the 19th century, discoveries in geology and paleontology, the study of fossil animals and plants, which we know now is absolutely 100% incorrect, made it difficult to think that the universe had existed for less than 6,000 years. Well, let me tell you something. They take a big slab of rock like that and they say, oh, that layer. Well, it's biology, and they think it's just sedimentation. So this slab took 200,000 years. No, it took 15 seconds. That's the problem. They just won't, and they won't pay attention to what I have presented, and it's indisputable. It's not even, there's no question whatsoever. DNA, CAT scans, specimens, giants, and the rest of it I will show you in a moment. This is very, very hard to dismiss unless you're a PhD. And then you can be perfectly happy deluded and convince everybody else of what your opinion is and disregard the evidence, such as what most of the scholars have done. Well, all of them, as far as I'm concerned. Now, there is a second story. All right, this goes on to talk about Darwin, how he solved everything as far as evolution goes, that we just came from slime and started to get bigger, and then all of a sudden ended up as we are now. So that did everything to destroy what was always taken as a literal interpretation of what it said in the Bible and these ancient texts. And they all say basically the same thing. It's just you have to study them and understand how they're presenting it. But they're presenting the same evidence in a somewhat different way. Now, this is where we took on a new myth, which is progress, supported by evolutionary theory, natural selection, survival of the fittest, and all that. And it reduced us to literal animals that are the supreme animal. Like if you're in a jungle and you're the lion and everybody else is less than the lion, well, you own the jungle. This is what we do. We own the world. And we have taken advantage of it so terribly that we've destroyed it. Okay, so now we know Darwin is totally wrong, and even Yale says the same thing. They say this is about creatures of the Ediacara biota. Well, guess what? And they published this 2016, long after I presented all this evidence to Yale. And now, yeah. Okay, so much for Darwin, because even Yale agrees Darwin had to be wrong. This is from October 2016. I presented all my evidence to them for years, and finally they published a paper in 2016 in October that said there was a great saltwater flood which was heavy in silicates and preserved all my mud fossils. They agree 100%. Now, and it says many of them are outright bizarre in appearance and do not resemble any organisms alive today, said Lydia Tarhan, a postdoctoral fellow at Yale and a first author of this study. We would like to understand their relationship to the complex animals that evolved shortly after. Are the Ediacara organisms some sort of failed evolutionary experiments? That's what they're asking. Because apparently they claim, and I agree, at this layer where there was a saltwater flood worldwide, and they agree it's worldwide, and it turned these rocks, these bodies, which are soft bodies, entirely soft body, they lived before the evolution of shells, teeth, and bones, which is not correct. They just were nucleophilically substituted, so everything changed. That's why they don't find bones. You see, they say that the teeth and the bones and the shells are typically the only parts of the organism to become fossilized. That's because they were later fossils, and they were exposed in the open air and just in the environment. These fossils were created from a hot saltwater silicate flood. And here's what they say right here. What the researchers realized was that oceans during the time of the Ediacara biota, which just means this one layer in time of several years, basically, in this era, were much richer in dissolved silica than they are today. That's because they boiled the creatures and boiled the membranes down into aluminum silicates, which turned into feldspar. I've done a very, very deep research on this. It enabled a transformation of rock into animals into rock to occur over a matter of hours or years. That's because they were boiled first. They were cooked. That's what creates all the body parts disassociated from the flesh. The flesh is cheap stuff. It just boiled off and turned into mud, literally mud. and the rest where they were strongly protected by membranes, they turned into rock. And it completely, like even this goose, this is a goose's head. That's my buddy Augustus Caesar, however you want to pronounce it. Here it is. And he died. There's his feathers and everything. He was boiled in the flood, flat on this side. You see it? And you can even see where his throat would have been here. See it? That's some of the detail that you can see. When you know how to look at these things, you can understand. You can see his neck was here. But it all turns. See, they're looking for bones. There's no bones there. But there are arteries. And there is literally blood inside these. And some of them are saturated with blood. I had 3 of mine tested, literally raw blood. And they were all human mitochondrial DNA. I have the tests. They were very, very well done, PCR tests. And I also have specimens that are not even human. They're almost human, but they have these what I call no-toes. This was a failed evolutionary experiment. It's exactly what it was, just exactly what Gail said. Was it? Yes, it was. Why do I say that? Because there was giants on the earth. There was giants. And the mythology talks about them, and the history talks about them, and Velikovsky did all the research and found them, and all of the religions talk about them. Now, this book is not really by me, but it is my research, and Paul Amatucci has them on Amazon. He's got a batch of them of my research, and they're nice, and they're very simple, easy to understand, and there's a lot of pictures and so forth. And some of it may not be even from my research, but basically it's built around my research of these giants. Nobody will pay any attention. So I appreciate Paul doing this. I have nothing to do with the books. I don't profit from them. I don't get involved in anything. So I don't even know what's in the book other than just thumbing through it. However, this is about giants, religion, history. All of that stuff has to be reassessed now in the light of mud fossils. And they agree with this. This is not just me. Look at this. These are animals into rock within hours or years. They're agreeing with everything I said. Virtually everything. But they don't understand it. They don't understand the hot water flood. They don't understand about Venus almost impacting Earth. They don't understand this was just recent. All my mud fossils, every one of them basically, came right off the surface of the Earth. Most of them came off of the rock walls that are around my property. And people just piled them up there when they were making the fields. And I just took them off the rock walls. I didn't hardly do anything at all. It just fell into my lap, and they were all like this. These are rocks, but they were bones. That was a bone, and you can see that little taste right there of white is all that's left of the actual bone. Almost never is there any residue of actual bone left in the mud fossils. That's it right there. And I have so many. I have them coming out of my ears. All right, let me just explain to you what did happen. There was a hot flood. Well, okay, so Yale admits there was a worldwide flood that created all of these heavy silicates, which they can't explain. I can, because they boiled off the flesh and all the cheap stuff that surrounds all the organs. And then, like, this is a lung. It's a human lung. It's been DNA tested, it's been CAT scanned. I drill inside, take the blood out. It was literally saturated with blood. And of course I did it very carefully and sent out 3 different specimens, this and 2 others. And the other ones were giant human beings, and they all came back as giant human beings, as human beings. This one's about our size. And that is the excuse me. That's the depression of the heart. It's flat as a pancake on the back. That's because it died in a flood like that. These parts were disassociated from the bodies because they were boiled out. And it took 7 days for Venus to come out of Jupiter and almost hit Earth. And I say come out of Jupiter, yes, Jupiter gave birth, is what it says, and exactly what Velikovsky said, and exactly what it says in the ancient texts. Jupiter, the feared god Jupiter, gave birth to the fiery comet Venus. And that's what they called it. This was what was written at that time. And it took 7 days to approach Earth. And as it did, it literally cooked everything as it came. And everybody, they claimed they jumped in the waters, they did all this to try to, they tried to hide, they tried to get in caves and everything to try to get away from this extreme radiation of 7 days coming. And then it bounced right off our atmosphere. And at that time, it could have made the Earth actually stand still from its rotation, bouncing into it, boom, like this. And of course, all the water would go sloshing all over the Earth, which it did. And it drowned and killed all of these gigantic monsters that were all over the Earth. And they are bizarre, just as they said. Many of them are outright bizarre. Absolutely. And like I have so much stuff that is bizarre that if it was looked at, it would be just stunning to the world. And I am denied access because of literally everybody. The academics hate me because I overthrow everything they've ever said, basically. And the Christians, Bible thumper really people, they hate me because I don't say every single word the Bible says. I'm going by these ancient myths, and I'm relating it to the Bible, and it does relate very, very well. So, but they say, oh, no, you can't, the Earth is flat. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable how I've been attacked from every single place. And the religious people that are always saying we want to find out about the origin of Earth and so forth and life, no, they don't want to talk to me. And they won't talk to me like Avi Loeb at Harvard. We won't return my stuff. He's talking about comets and meteorites and all this stuff being interplanetary space vehicles. No, they're body parts that are in space. Yes. All of this was written about wars in the heavens, and these were wars of giant creatures. And I'll show you Comet 67P, and I'm going to tell you one right now. That is one giant. And it was killed in space. And this was all written about by Velikovsky. And he went back and captured all the text from all the cultures around the world, not just here, not just there, everywhere. And he went to the museums, he went to the libraries, he went to the cultural centers, he took all the indigenous people's stories, and he matched them up, and they all came out to be approximately 1500 BC. There was this great cataclysm on the Earth, and it just basically wiped everybody off the face of the planet. And it was a recovery time as they recovered. And my research shows me that there was some kind of advanced creatures here. They had to come from some other planet, to my way of thinking. And they had machines and everything else. I'll show you the machines, and they actually mined the remnants of this flood. All right, and they used the body parts to create all these walls and so forth in Peru and places like that. These were all body parts of these creatures. I know it sounds insane, but it's true. Okay, I'm just going to start with this, and then I'm going to really get deep. Earth gave birth. It says, this is what it says in the ancient myth. Now, take it or leave it, but I'm going to show you where I think Earth did give birth. Sky ruled over the whole world, and having wedded the Earth, they had what they called the 100-handed. They had 100 hands and 50 heads. I know, sounds insane. And then, after these, Earth bore him the Cyclopes and all of these titans and so forth. But he kept eating them. Uranus did, and eventually, she had her sons kill him, and Kronos became the new ruler. And then it goes on from there, and we also, so Earth gave birth. Here's the key. Earth is giving birth to these titans and cyclopses and all that stuff. And one of them was Typhon. And he's the giant, man between beast, size and strength. His head often brushed the stars. He had all kinds of dragon heads, and his fire flashed from his eyes. I show all those things. And here he is, right here in the desert. That's Typhon. And he's spitting out fire to kill the fish below, who was Venus, who transformed herself into an animal. And all of that stuff is written. It's all written. And here he is laying here in the desert, scales all over him, his throat, his red flashing eye. And here he is without any makeup on. All right, there's his red fiery eye. Here's all the spit is coming down at the fish. There's his throat. And these are all dragon scales. Run all down. This is all run off from his dead, decaying bodily fluids. Now, what else can we talk about here? In this ancient map, very nicely done, they show Typhon right here. You see that? There's Typhon. Runs all the way across North Africa. Same guy. You see it? All the way across, all the way across. And what happened here? His throat is cut. And his throat is cut because Zeus cut his throat. They knew this. This has been all written out of the history books. And there appears to have been other dragons. If this is dragon scales, which it is, there's this flared tail at the end. And the other thing I want you to see is the Red Sea. Why is it red? Why do you think the Red Sea gets red? I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that is where all these titans and everything were born from. Because if you look at it on Google, there it is right there. There's the Red Sea. And I'm going to tell you right now, that, my friends, I believe is a vagina. And it turns red every so often, which they do. And it's formed exactly like a vagina. And this is very deep. It's over here we're looking at 3,250, 3,700, 4,200, 4,700, and then it starts coming back up. So there's your very, very deep spot, and between these two little flaps, and then just coming up here, it's only 276 feet. So you're 4,700 feet down here up to 276. That's a hell of a big, deep cavity there. Now, I consider myself pretty good with vaginas, and I'm telling you right now, I think that's a vagina. And I believe that's why it turns red, Red Sea. And I also believe this is where the excretory part of the poop is. Because the earth was alive, just like everything was alive. And this whole area is digestive area. And these are all digestive juices and fluids. You see these different, whenever you see these really wacko looking colors right next to each other, these blues and greens and yellows and all that stuff, and this is just basically some kind of a digestive tube, it looks like to me. And then it comes out into this poop plane and exuded right from there. You see, don't forget, they have a little pocket of color right next to the discharge area. And that's where that is running out, and then they all run together and they discharge out here. Now, was Earth completely alive? I think we've killed it, if it was ever completely alive. Or is this just Earth going through its, decay? I don't know. But we're all given off what looks to me like body fluids. And there's one that I was particularly interested in, and that was Mount Spur in Alaska. And I was in Alaska, right down the street from there. I was in Anchorage. And I'll show you that one. And that is 100%. It's an avian cloaca, and I will show you that. And I believe this is, I'd be willing to bet money on it, that's exactly what this is a vagina. And that's where she bore all of these children. And that's what it says. Now, I don't think Earth bears planets, but Jupiter did. And it gave birth to the fiery comet Venus. All right. If you are an avian person, you know that birds have a single discharge area. It's called a cloaca. And the poop, which is here, mixes with the fluids, which is here, and they combine together through a common discharge tube. Now, that spot and that spot right there pinch to close that discharge area. See the two spots? You see this color? You see this color here? They all have some little, these are probably enzymes, or they may be working with vitamins, I don't know. But this is the poop. Mount Spur, that's my name. That's literally the rectum. And this brown stuff is literally poop. And when they come back together, they are the stuff that birds poop. That's what comes out of them. That's why it's got black and white all mixed in together. Now, this area here is just nothing but biology, and that's right. Anchorage is right down below here. I'll show you in a minute. And this is some other biology. It's right in that area. This is the stuff that's going on in the digestive area of some kind of creature. I don't know what it was. Well, I do know what it was. It was Scorpzilla. And this may have something to do with the scorpion stuff, which is the vile stuff that they produce. Because Typhon in the desert, woo, the stuff that he produced was unbelievable. And this is kind of nasty looking too. All right, what I'm going to show you will leave absolutely no room for denial that Apollodorus 1.6.3 was correct. These are the streams of fire spit from his throat. And now I'm going to back out of this and you will see. This was spit down and it started to combust, literally combust into fiery patches here. And it's still visible today. I don't know how it's still visible like this, but it almost looks like it's on fire. Now, it comes down to the back. This is his beard. Now look at this. The beard squirts out all this green stuff. It hits up with the other. There's more coming down this way, and it turns into this. It looks like almost fiery spots. Now, I'm going to come away from this so you can see the whole thing at one time. And then all of this stuff comes down towards the fish. Here's his head right here. All right, so follow my cursor. There's his head. All around here. That's his throat. This is all runoff. That's the dragon scales. Let's go in and look at him, make sure you understand. This is his throat. These are the dragon scales that coat his throat. All of this stuff is runoff of bodily fluids. This is his actual, what surrounded his throat. Now, if you come down here, his throat is cut right there. I showed you in the ancient map. There's his throat cut right there. And he goes all the way across North Africa from here all the way out to here. Remember the flared tail? That's this flared tail. It comes all the way over here. That's why they showed it come in one big line and then shush, 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 shush. Well, here's his body, runs all the way across North Africa. And there's his legs coming down here. And he attacked this fish. And that's that nasty, nasty stuff I showed you hitting the fish. And it actually burnt through the fish's scales. And this is the giant fish. I've shown this literally hundreds of times, and I don't know how many times I can show it, but I'm gonna. Now, this is where that dragon venom literally ate through his flesh. I can find lymph nodes and the lymphatic system and blood vessels. Let me show you some blood vessels. Remember, here it is hitting his fin. It's burning through his fin. It burns through all the way down to here. And then the event was over. But this is through the scales onto the flesh. And flesh is fed by blood vessels. And these are blood vessels. And what do blood vessels have in common? They first have arteries, which are the big, big ones. And then off the arteries, they branch into what they call blood vessels, which are the smaller ones that feed the tiny little capillaries, which are these little jobbers here. Now, what happens at the end, all the good stuff is gone, and they dump their contents into this lymph system or the veins, and it brings it back up to the heart to be charged. You see over here? This is a good place we can see a lot of them dumping in here. You see them all dumping into there? This is where your blood pressure is established. I'm not kidding you. This pinches them off, so that when you pulse, your heart goes ba-doom, ba-doom. It's going boop, 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 boop. These let it squirt, and it says how much is going to go through there, and that backs it up and it gives you higher blood pressure. or lower blood pressure if they ease open. Anyway, that's just a little biology there for you. Now, so this is the guy's back. And over here I could find where the lymph system was working, trying to protect these lymph nodes, and they couldn't. The lymph nodes were just destroyed. That's a lymph node. You say, oh, come on, Roger. Yes, it is. Right up here, the toxin is coming in. And it's killing, it's killed the flesh. You see, it's all this flesh is dying. This is trying to move down and kill more flesh. Well, what would your body do in response to that? Your body sends out lymph fluids with all kinds of enzymes in them. And they have the ability to do a lot of chemistry, but this is just overwhelming. So what it did is, this is a lymph, this tannish looking stuff. It's not red blood, it's not the black vein, it's lymph. And it's trying to eat up that toxin. And what would it do to eat it up? It would carry it from here, over here, down, and filter it over into the lymph nodes. This is lymph, and that's a lymph node. Now, where do you see this? I'm going to wait. I got to let it settle in for a second. All of that lymph feeds in there, which is nasty, 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 toxic, nasty stuff. And then you have filters. All right, there's going to be filters in here. You see the filters? They keep all the big bad stuff out. And they let in what they want to let in. I don't know how they work, to be perfectly honest with you, but I know they are filters, and they're on every single one of them. And all of that stuff, with all nasty stuff in it, and it's probably this nasty stuff here, this black stuff, is now killing the lymph node. So the lymph node is dead, and it's on the surface. You see them sticking up off the top of the surface. You never should see these. They're killed them all the way down to here. These are all dead too. They're all trying to help. There is no help. And here's Typhon's red fiery eye. Now, I am taking these myths factually. And I also going to tell you another thing. They were always trying to figure out where all of these sea monsters came from. You think about this. I was looking into Marrakesh. I understand that too. But anyway, you think of a creature that long, something, I mean, a parasite-sized thing on here, not even a parasite, an amoeba could swim out of its head into the ocean looking for ships to eat. And that's what they did. They came right out here. This whole area was loaded with sea monsters. And they came out of the runoff into the ocean and started searching around for something to eat. That's where the sea monsters came from. They were parasites. That thing is, I think I figured it out somewhere 1,100 miles long, maybe longer than that. But these are the things that were real. And Mount Spur is part of what I call Scorpzilla. And they were just gigantic creatures. California is Scorpzilla's head. There's the eye. And that's the eye pupil right there. Right down here, if they could test this, I bet you that's going to be salty, because this eyes usually have some salty fluids coming out. Lake Crowley's down here, and it's nothing but these huge, like they look like trees trunks, but they are his beard. And coming all the way up his back here, all the way up to past Alaska. This is his scorpion tail. That's why I call him Scorpzilla. That scorpion pincher came, and when he died, he squirted this stuff out, just dribbled out of here. Now, this, as I say, is a scorpion pincher. Well, how are you going to pinch anybody? There's no room to pinch anybody. This retracted like this. You see all of these wrinkles here? This thing twisted right back up into here. So now it's up here, it's loaded. You get in between here, it just goes, doop, you're done. All right, and it pins on, and it swivels on that pin. That's what I've taken away from this. Now, and Mount Spur is right exactly where it should be, right where the butt is. Where am I here? Here it is right there. Mount Spur. That's it right there. It's a volcano, an active volcano. It's poops down here, and that's what volcanoes are. That's why they just all of a sudden erupt. All of this stuff is body, is bodily things. Look at this. That's not just like that for no reason. You see this? This is all guts. This is guts. And you see all these different colored little lakes and things. Those tell you that there's some chemistry going on there. And that chemistry, see, there's one here, there's one up here. This is all biology, and it dumps in right down into here, into the excremental system. Now, they all have this little colored thing on the side, and I'm not sure whether that discharges in or it brings back something. I'm not sure. These are the pinchers that pinch it off. Let me rotate this so it'll make more sense. All right. Mount Spur poops right out of here. All of that stuff I showed you up in here, all that biological stuff, that dumps down into here, and also some feeds into here as well from the side. It goes two ways. You get this one here coming down, but it meets up with another one, you see? This is the poop side, that's Spur, and this is coming from up above, from that other stuff, that crazy looking stuff I was showing you. Look at these things. Look at that. This is all biology, my friends. This is all biology. So, I'm just telling you, that's Scorzilla. And remember, I told you about these different colored lakes. Every time you see them, that's where your digestive system is, and that's the poop, and it's coming out into Cook Inlet here. And I was in Anchorage. I think Anchorage is right over here somewhere. Right there. I used to service the nuclear missile sites that surrounded Anchorage. But this whole area, look, you see all these different colored things? This whole area is nothing but the digestive system and poop. And then we have Quetzalcoatl on the East Coast. And here he is right there. All these ancient myths we've always laughed at, and the people are idiots, and they still call me an idiot for talking about it, but I'm never going to stop because it's true. I go for truth. You can laugh and just be mental-sided by your professors who are PhDs. I'll give them that. They're perfectly happy deluded. And unfortunately, they have like so much domination over the students. The students are actually literally afraid. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not teasing around here. They are scared to death to even speak up to their teachers, because they will be, at that point, the teacher doesn't even have to do anything. Oh, no, Johnny, that's not right, you little flat earther. And that's exactly what's going to happen in his mind. He's going to say, this kid is a freaking nut job, and I'm not going to, I'm going to destroy his life because he's coming up with all this crazy stuff. Now, the flat earthers, yes, I'm done with that. That's just insanity. We know you can see the Earth from space. There is a space station. There's all kinds of stuff out there that's looking. We have gone to Mars. I know this for 100% factual because I understand the erosion characteristics of the things that I've looked at, and I have looked at Mars deeply from the Curiosity mission. The Mars crab, the blueberries, the Morse code. I know that stuff inside and out, and it is biology exactly like Earth, as I have just been showing you. It appears that the entire universe is nothing but biology. And DNA literally self-assembles in space. The Russians did this in 2015. They went up there and put charged particles in a vacuum chamber, and it turned into DNA. I'm not kidding you, I'll show you. You see this? These are charged particles in a vacuum chamber in outer space. The Russians did this. I think it was 2014, 2015. It started to assemble into what certainly looks like double helix to me. And they also had this happen, which supports my electron dipole flood theory, which means that all particles are dipoles. And in the outer space, they can disassemble from each other. The white can disassemble from the black. I never realized that, but on Earth it doesn't, because everything's crushed together. In outer space, they can come apart like that, and it pushes all the black to the center and all the white surrounding it. No, everybody freaked out. During an experiment, they contacted the Earth guys. They couldn't believe it either. One guy locked himself in his office for 3 weeks in Max Planck. They just freaked out, because you can't explain this whatsoever until you go into electron flood theory. Dipoles. Everything's dipoles. And a proton is not made of one big ball. It's made of 1,823 tiny little magnets called dipoles.